Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's
alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to It's Alive Live Podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I am your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, and with me as always is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India horror, the expert of guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Amy Rose.
Hi.
So last week, we started the story of Norman and Norma Bates.
We did.
Master Bates. He's a bit of a wild guy.
Bates. I know a guy. I used to know a guy whose second name was Bates.
Yeah?
Yeah. I always thought it was funny as well. Master Bates.
Why would the teachers call him Master Bates?
I didn't know him in school, so I don't know.
Oh. So yeah, it was, I mean, this week, the side of the story we're about to tell us you, I feel like the middle episode here, because we got another episode, part 3 next week.
We do.
Part 1 and 3 are a lot of the stuff people don't know about Norman Bates. Because if you've heard of the story of Norman Bates, this is the part you're going to know the best.
Yes.
This is the part everybody knows about, is how Norman Bates first got found out and the whole Marion Crane saga. This is really information people probably know a lot about already. We're just going to fill in a lot of little bits and pieces that they don't know, or maybe connections from his past and his future, because his future is actually a lot more interesting than what's went on so far, and we'll get to that next week.
Next year.
You never know with us sometimes. You could just go missing.
Oh, we're not that bad.
Last year, I got confused this week, right? I was just organizing our shit, right? And I keep all of our videos for It's Alive Pod for this show. I don't bother keeping the videos for the Horrorverse headlines. I dump them because space. I just don't have it, and I need to fucking keep it. And I was looking, and I'm like, but we did the Charles Lee Ray series for Halloween last year. How do I have so little videos? Have we really only done like 20 episodes in an entire year?
Were we not down for Halloween?
No, we got sick last year for Halloween and did nothing for Halloween last year. Yeah. So the Charles Lee Ray thing didn't actually happen until much later.
Yeah.
So
then we got sick again.
Yep.
Great track record.
We need some fucking temps in here is what we need.
It might be better than us. No.
Drive up our ratings and we'll come back in and take all the credit. Oh yeah, like real bosses.
Nice. Yeah. Write that episode there for me, will you?
Okay, so let's get back to Master Bates and see how he's doing.
Well, by 1960, Norman Bates was 30 years old and living entirely alone. He had inherited both the big Gothic house on the hill and the Bates Motel below, and for most of the town folk in Fairvale, he was just that quiet young man who ran a business that barely made any money anymore. The new freeway had rerouted the bulk of the traffic, and the once promising roadside motel had dwindled into a failing property. Guests were few and far between, and most nights Norman was the only soul on the property, except for, of course, his mother.
And by mother, you mean the corpse he dug up, taxidermied, and argued with daily.
Absolutely. Outwardly, Norman told people his mother was simply ill and preferred to stay in her room. But behind closed doors, he argued with her, shouted at her, and impersonated her voice. In Norman's mind, she was alive, and not just alive, she was in control.
Alive.
The master bedroom upstairs was kept exactly as Norma had left it. The bed was pristine, perfume bottles were neatly lined up, clothes hung in the closet untouched. Neighbours who occasionally visited described it as eerie, as though Norma Bates had simply stepped out for a walk and may return at any moment.
So basically, it was a shrine with the actual body sitting downstairs somewhere.
Exactly. Norman's life since his mother's death had been one of isolation. He worked, he ate, he maintained the house and motel, and he kept his mother alive through conversation and performance.
See? Bringing people alive through the medium of theatre.
Exactly. But when women crossed his path, everything grew dangerous. As we covered before, 2 women, Holly and Gloria, had already fallen victim to the mother persona. Both had been killed after stirring Norman's feelings of attraction, and both had vanished into the swamp behind the motel.
And by stirring feelings of attraction, you mean stirring feelings in his pants.
Exactly. Those cases remain unsolved.
Remain.
We
don't know what they
unsolved.
If it was still remaining unsolved, people would be coming to us with questions right now from Fairvale. How do ye know this?
Locals chalked them up to missing persons, tragedies, but not mysteries that anyone pinned on Norman.
Which is kind of amazing if you think about it. 2 women vanished right after hanging around a creepy guy at the dead motel, and nobody puts it together.
Well, like, it was the 1950s. Like, people disappeared far more easily then. Records were slow, communication was limited, and small town police didn't always think in terms of, like, serial offenders.
They didn't even have the term serial offender yet. There was no serial killers in 1960. They just weren't fucking called serial killers. So Norman carried on, the polite but peculiar innkeeper who seemed destined to be forgotten.
Up until Marion Crane drove up one rainy night in 1960, that is. Marion Crane was 33, a secretary from Phoenix, Arizona. She was in a long, strained relationship with a divorced man named Sam Loomis, but the relationship wasn't going anywhere. Sam was tied up with debts from his divorce settlement, and Marion was increasingly unhappy with the idea of waiting indefinitely for a future that might never come.
We've talked about this before, like the idea of why there is so many
killings,
family annihilations in fucking America. And it's because of the way they deal with divorce.
Yep.
You know? I don't know, because I've never really spoken to a divorced person over here about it, but I don't know if they have the same amount of
alimony and
maintenance and alimony. I mean,
you pay your child support,
but I don't think there's any real
no, I don't think so. I think it's just child support.
Whereas over there, you got to worry about the cost of the lawyers, how long this is going to drag out, how much you're going to have to give away monthly to the wife just for living, and then the child support, which could be high and all that. And that's generally what drives these fucking lunatics to think, it'd be easier just to kill them all. Yeah.
Be done with that.
Then I don't got to pay anything. They'll give me a lawyer. They'll feed me three fucking hot meals a day, and I'll have a roof over my head. No, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking I can run off with my hot little secretary here and start a new life.
Yeah, like your man, like last year, the year before, that tried to run off with his hot little secretary or whatever, and he actually got, remember, it was the 2 daughters and the wife. It was awful.
I hate those stories.
Yep. One Friday afternoon, after meeting a wealthy rancher named Tom Cassidy, who was buying a property through her employer, Marion Crane was left in charge of a staggering sum of money, $40,000 in cash. She was supposed to deposit it at the bank. Instead, Marion snapped. She packed the money into her bag and left town without a word, planning to meet Sam and start a new life with him.
I worked out what that 40 grand would be worth nowadays.
About $500,000?
I think it was about 400,000 or something in and around there. And this is where, if this were a normal true crime case, she'd just get arrested for embezzlement.
Yeah.
Instead, she took a wrong turn and ended up starring in one of the most infamous murders of the 20th century.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Marion drove through the night, growing increasingly anxious as the rain poured down. She was exhausted, disoriented, and lost on the back roads, and she finally saw a neon sign glowing in the darkness. Bates Motel. She pulled in, parked her car, and rang the bell. Norman greeted her politely, stammering as always. He introduced himself as the proprietor and offered her a room. Marion signed the register under a false name, Maurice Samuels from Los Angeles, and Norman accepted it without question.
I got to pause here. All right, think about it. She's running from embezzlement, hiding under a fake name, and the person she stumbles across is a guy hiding a whole dead body upstairs. That's bad fucking luck right
Indeed.
there. Well, I mean, we know as well she was in a panic state. There was a police officer. I can't think of the officer's name off the top of my fucking head, but he said he came across her the morning beforehand on the side of the road asleep in her car.
Okay.
And he pulled over and just kind of just to see who was in the car, why it was pulling the side of the road, this back road, and questioned her a little bit. But she gave off a very standoffish kind of vibe and panicked, kind of like he could fucking, do you know how you could almost tell
there's something going on, there's guilty, she
just guilt about it. So he actually ended up following her, saw her going to a used car lot, buying putting her what's the word, fucking swapping her car out and paying off the difference for a new car in cash,
Part
and then
exchange.
driving off in a bit of a panic. So he was suspicious of her to begin with, and even the guy who sold her the car said it was really strange. I've never had a customer play hardball with me the way she did. It's not hardball about, the price was hardball as in like trying to get me to make the sale rather than me trying to get her to make to buy the car.
So she was pushing him into the sale.
It was just like, as fast as we can do this, let's get it going. Go. I'll take this one. I don't need a test drive. This will do fine. I'm out of here.
Okay.
So there was a bit of, she was in a panicked kind of fucking, which I suppose if you're a regular person who's never really done anything illegal in your life or a big crime in your life, nicking a big amount of money and going on the run, you're not going to know what to do with yourself really, or how to deal with any authority figure that comes in your way. Like, any cop you see, you're going to be thinking, they're here for me, they're here for me.
Shit. Yeah. But Norman was thrilled to have a guest, and he offered to prepare dinner for Marion and invited her to eat with him in the parlour behind the office. For Norman, this was a rare chance at human connection, and he clearly didn't want the evening to end too soon.
But upstairs in the house, Norman's other half was stirring. Mother was not pleased. He actually originally asked her to join him in the house for dinner.
Ooh,
and according to him, Marion heard, we're going to get into that right now.
Yeah. Well, Marion overheard Norman arguing with his mother's voice through the open window. Mother accused him of bringing shame into the house, of befriending a strange woman, and of betraying her memory. When Marion mentioned the argument later, Norman brushed it off, insisting that everything was fine, but the cracks in his psyche were showing.
And imagine being Marion, you're already nervous. You've got a bag full of stolen cash, and then you realize the innkeeper is arguing with an invisible mother about whether you're corrupting him or not.
Yep.
Not exactly a relaxing overnight stay. Even though she didn't know she was an invisible mother, you still hear this extremely shrill, angry voice coming down hard on him, and suddenly it's like, well, we're not going to have dinner in the house anymore. We're just going to have it in the office here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
In fact, I believe, like she said, we'll get into it. Keep going.
But Marion was sympathetic towards him. Like, during their dinner, Norman confessed that his mother was mentally ill, and Marion, thinking she was being helpful, suggested that he consider placing his mother in an institution.
But that suggestion hit Norman hard. He snapped back that his mother was not a bad person, just a woman who, and I quote, goes a little mad sometimes. And then he said the words that would later become infamous: we all go a little mad sometimes.
To Marion, it was just an awkward conversation with a lonely man. She thanked him for the meal, and she told him she would return to Phoenix and try to put things right, and went to her room for the night. But in Norman's mind, the damage was done. The attraction he felt for Marion had awakened Mother, and Mother wasn't going to let Marion leave alive.
This is the moment you can feel the fuse burning down. Marion thinks she's turning her life around. Norman thinks his mom is about to help him by committing another murder, and the motel's about to become ground zero for one of the most infamous crimes in American history.
Yep.
And you kind of feel bad for him, because after the last two, he's been trying hard to keep that urge cut down, like to stop Mother from doing what she does, Yeah,
it didn't really work out for him, though. I mean, we've seen how Norman lived in isolation after his mother's death, keeping her alive in his mind and his house. We've seen the motel dwindle into obscurity, leaving Norman desperate for human contact and vulnerable to the jealous rage of his other self. And into that world, Marion Crane walked with $40,000 and a plan for a new life.
She thought she was checking into a quiet little roadside inn. In reality, she just checked into her own fucking murder scene.
Yep. And next, we'll cover the infamous shower killing, the moment that sealed Norman Bates' place in true crime history. By the time Marion Crane settled into her room at the Bates Motel, the storm outside had turned the night into a wall of rain. She unpacked her things and carefully hid the stolen money inside a folded newspaper and took a moment to write down her intentions to return to Phoenix to make things right.
But upstairs, Mother had already made the decision of her own. You know?
Yeah.
We were not having this.
Yeah.
That Jezebel needs to be off the property immediately.
Absolutely. Norman's attraction to Marion and his kindness over dinner and Marion's suggestion that Mother might belong in an institution, all of it had stirred the fury inside his head. To Norman, Mother was alive and furious, and to Mother, Marion Crane had to die.
But you think, if he said that to Norman, then he said that to Mother, which means she heard the idea of putting her into a home. Like, that's...
Oh, yeah.
And this is where you see the real nightmare of living with Norman's kind of dissociation. He doesn't need a trigger like alcohol or drugs. He the only thing required is that a woman shows him a tiny bit of kindness, and suddenly Mother is storming down the hall with a knife. We should start checking on all these incels, Mom.
I was just thinking it. Marion stepped into the bathroom and turned on the shower and let the water wash away the stress of the day. She didn't hear the creak of footsteps outside the door, and she didn't see the shadow that loomed behind the shower curtain.
But you think the wall of water outside, the rain, the noise of the rain, would have been the perfect mask for, dampening the sound of him approaching. You don't hear shit when rain is hitting that hard.
Well, you've got the shower sound as well, the rain outside.
When we're in bed watching TV and it starts raining hard, I got to turn that TV way up to fucking hear what's going on.
And it depends what type of roof they had as well. Like if you have one of those tin roofs, that's it. Forget about it.
Banging down hard.
Yep. In a matter of seconds, the curtain was ripped aside. A figure appeared in a woman's silhouette, hair pinned back, wielding a large kitchen knife. Marion screamed. The blade struck, and again, slashing through the steam and water. The attack was frenzied but swift. Within moments, Marion collapsed against the tile, the water and her blood mixing together before spiraling down the drain.
It's one of those crimes that becomes instantly iconic. The shock, the brutality, the fact that it happened in such a vulnerable, intimate moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a murder. It was a violation of trust, privacy, even the safety of your own body. I mean, from day one, when I learned about this story as a kid, as a teenager, I was always sketchy. I'd have to make sure my bathroom door was locked before I got into it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If I'm sectioning myself off from the rest of the room and my hearing is tampered with, I need to...
It's locked double hard before I jump on in.
Absolutely. And of course, Norman himself wasn't there. In his mind, the killer was Mother. When it was over, Norman reappeared, and what he found horrified him. Marion's lifeless body lay crumpled in the shower, the newspaper stuffed with money sitting unnoticed on the dresser. Norman gasped, staggered, and immediately rushed to clean up the mess, but not because he believed he had killed Marion, but because he believed his mother had. To Norman, he was protecting her, covering for her crime, and shielding her from the consequences.
And this is the twisted irony of Norman's life. He killed Marion, but instead of owning it, he doubled down on the delusion, thinking, Mom's going to get in trouble if I don't hide this.
Yep.
I mean, how must your brain be working that...
It's a bit of a sweetheart, really. Like anything,
shock and fucking, revulsion at what he sees has been done. Except 10 minutes earlier, it was just him in a dress.
You feel sorry for him, wanting to help out his mother that much, But Norman moved methodically. He wrapped Marion's body in the shower curtain. He wiped down every surface, and he gathered her belongings, including the folded newspaper with the $40,000 hidden inside, though he never realized the money was there. Then, under the cover of night, he carried Marion's body to her car, placed her in the trunk, and drove the vehicle to the swamp behind the motel. Slowly, he pushed the car into the water, watching it sink beneath the surface, and for a terrifying moment, it stopped, half submerged, threatening to remain visible. Norman panicked, obviously, as you would. But then, with a final groan of mud and water, the car disappeared into the depths.
Yeah, you can just picture Norman standing there, sweating, whispering, go down, go down, go down, like he's negotiating with the swamp. That's one of those times where everybody would try and just see maybe maybe I have the force.
Yeah, like how do you fix that if the car doesn't go down? Go out and jump on it a tiny bit, weigh it down with more
That's what I was
rocks.
thinking. Maybe he had finally got to the point where he'd stacked too many cars on top of each other.
Yeah,
How
he
many
was like,
cars can you
"Shit."
fit in the same spot in a swamp?
Depends how,
I mean,
like,
so
how long is the
far,
latest
there's
length of
at
string,
least
like,
2 in there that we know of.
that we know of. The next morning, Norman went about his duties as if nothing had happened. To anyone driving past the motel looked the same as always. The young innkeeper looked nervous, polite, and unremarkable.
But in Phoenix, alarm bells were already ringing.
Absolutely. Marion's disappearance was noticed almost immediately. Her employer discovered the missing $40,000, and Sam Loomis, her lover, hadn't heard from her. And Marion's sister, Lila Crane, was frantic.
Within days, private investigator Milton Arbogast was hired to track her down. And Lila Crane is going to turn out to be a massive thorn in poor old Norman's side as we go on.
Arbogast was thorough. He traced Marion's movements step by step. Witnesses later recalled her driving out of the town. Bank clerks confirmed she never deposited the money. Eventually, his search led him along the old highway and to the Bates Motel. He pulled in, met Norman, and began asking questions.
And Norman, bless him, he tries his best, but you can practically see him sweating through the stammer.
Exactly. Yeah. Norman greeted Arbogast politely, but his nervous chatter and shifting stories raised suspicion. He insisted no one by Marion's description had stayed there, but then under pressure, he admitted a woman had stopped by. He claimed she'd only stayed the night and then left in the morning.
Arbogast wasn't convinced. This is a fucking seasoned PI. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard about his reputation before this, he was good at his job.
He was well trained.
He does not fuck up. He knows when someone's bullshitting him. He knows he can sniff it out.
Yeah.
And he was not convinced.
While Norman tried to maintain his composure, Arbogast observed details that didn't add up. There were unused cabins, yet Norman had placed Marion in one far from the office. There were gaps in his timeline, little inconsistencies in his accounts.
That's wrong. Norman put Marion in the room directly next to the office.
Oh.
What Arbogast actually noticed is, that's my fault. I wrote that down wrong. Was that Norman told him that he'd like to change the linens once a week to keep the damp smell out of the rooms. He said, I don't get many guests, but I change all the linens once a week. And when Arbogast said, would you mind if I searched the rooms to see if there was any sign of her?
Yeah.
Norman said, no problem. Come along with me while I change the bedding if you want. And Arbogast said, no, you're okay. Don't worry about it. But when they walked outside, he noticed Norman skipped the first cabin and went straight to the second.
Okay. Arbogast pressed further. He asked if he could speak to Norman's mother.
Well, see, this is the point. After he noticed about the first room being missed, he looked up at the house and he could see someone sitting in the window. And he thought it was Marion
an alive
Crane.
body.
He believed that maybe Marion had convinced Norman to hide her for a cut of the 40 grand.
Okay. Well, when he mentioned this to Norman, Norman stiffened and he insisted his mother was too ill to see anyone. When Arbogast pushed, Norman's polite facade cracked. His stammer worsened and his voice rose, and he flatly refused.
And that's a big red flag, especially a PI. Again, he knows what he's doing. And anytime someone refuses to let you talk to the person in the house, you know something's going on. It's like, sorry, my mom just, she's eternally napping. She'll get back to you.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Arbogast left, but he wasn't finished. He phoned Lila Crane and Sam Loomis, updating them on his progress. He told them he believed Marion had been at the motel and that Norman was hiding something, but he promised to return after confronting Norman's mother. But Arbogast never made it back.
And here comes victim number 2 in this part of the story.
Yep. That night, Arbogast crept into the Bates house, determined to speak with Norma Bates. He climbed the stairs, peering into the dimly lit bedroom. Suddenly, a figure rushed from the shadows, the silhouette of an elderly woman, hair in a bun, knife raised high. Arbogast gasped, stumbled, and was stabbed repeatedly, tumbling backward down the stairs in a cascade of blows. He collapsed at the bottom, dead. For Norman, it was another blackout. To him, Mother had struck again, and once again he rushed to clean up, dragging Arbogast's body away, wiping the blood and concealing the evidence. But Arbogast's disappearance only deepened the mystery. When he failed to call back, Lila and Sam knew something was very wrong.
Yeah, at this point, it's official. The base motel isn't just a failing business. It's a black hole where people go in and don't come back out again.
Yep.
But isn't it ironic how two women go missing going here and nobody has anything to say about it? Another
But
woman
a
goes
man goes
missing.
missing.
No. Another woman goes missing here and 40 grand goes missing here. And suddenly it's like, ooh, we better go check that out.
Yeah, it's the money.
Fuck the woman. We need that 40 grand back. No, Marion Crane can stay in the swamp and go swimming for the money.
In the days ahead, Lila Crane and Sam Loomis would make their own journey to Fairvale, determined to find Marion and now Arbogast too. Their search would bring them face to face with the truth of Norman Bates, a truth more horrifying than anything they could have ever imagined.
And honestly, worse than anything Arbogast could have imagined. The poor guy thought he was going to have a stern talk with an old woman. Instead, he ends up as swamp food as well.
Yep. We've seen how Marion Crane's desperate flight ended in the shower at the Bates Motel, and we've seen how Norman Bates' delusion forced him to cover for his mother. And we've seen how Milton Arbogast's investigation brought him straight into the killer's path.
And by this point in 1916, Marion Crane was gone, Milton Arbogast was missing, and the Bates Motel was under a shadow no one in Fairvale could ignore.
Yep. For Marion's sister, Lila Crane, the wait for answers was unbearable. Together with Sam Loomis, Marion's lover, she travelled to Fairvale to continue the search herself. The two arrived suspicious of Norman, armed only with determination and desperation.
And I've got to say, this is the part where you kind of have to admire Lila's persistence, even though when we get to the next episode, she becomes a bit more unlikable. Okay. She's basically a true crime podcast listener who decides, you know what? The cops ain't going to solve this. I'm going to go do it myself. She's a Reddit sleuth.
Yeah, spot on. Yep. So their first stop was the Sheriff of Fairvale, Sheriff Al Chambers. They explained their suspicions that Arbogast had vanished after visiting the Bates Motel, that Marion had been there, and that Norman's mother was somehow involved. But the sheriff dismissed the claims. He told them that Norman's mother, Norma Bates, had been dead for years.
And this is the moment where the penny drops, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because up until now, everyone thought there was still an actual mother lurking around the house. But nope, she's been dead and buried for over a decade.
Exactly. And if Lila and Sam were stunned. If Norma Bates was dead, then who had Arbogast seen in that upstairs window? Who had Norman been arguing with? Sheriff Chambers brushed it off, suggesting maybe Norman was unstable but harmless. He advised them not to press the matter further.
Classic small-time sheriff move, you know. Yeah, he's a little odd, but don't worry about it. Just ignore the fact that people keep disappearing around this property.
Messing up his day, you are. So Lila even wasn't satisfied. She and Sam returned to the motel under the pretense of being a married couple looking for a room.
And I wouldn't mind. The sheriff didn't do nothing. While they were there, he rang Norman and give him a quick question.
Is your mother a killer? Are you killing people?
What's the story here? These people said these for, and he just said, yes, this girl did stay and moved on the next day. And yeah, I had an investigator up here who questioned me about it, and he left as well. Said he was happy enough. Haven't seen him since.
Okay. Well, Norman checked Lila and Sam into the motel, his stammering politeness masking the chaos beneath the surface. While Sam distracted Norman with small talk, Lila slipped away toward the house on the hill.
And this is where it turns into a horror movie in real time. Because first they checked the cabin that they thought she was in.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And they searched. But Norman had done a pretty good job of clearing that place out. So there was nothing to find in cabin number 1 at Bates Motel.
Okay.
But you know, imagine then, I mean, the next move is let's go up and see who fucking mother is. Like, you know, what's going on there? Maybe Marion is hiding out up there with the money. So you can imagine it yourself. You know, you're creeping around this gothic house knowing that something's off, but not sure what. Every floorboard creak feels like a bit of a warning, like, you know?
Yeah. Lila moved cautiously through the house and she peeked into the kitchen, still furnished as though Norma were alive. She crept upstairs into the immaculate bedroom, untouched since Norma's death. The bed was perfectly made and her personal effects sat in place. It was a shrine to a woman long gone.
But there was no sign of Norma herself. And the bed was not perfectly made. I have read about this. There was a little dent where Norma would have been lying. That her
her imprint.
Yeah, was still there.
Eee. Meanwhile, Sam's conversation with Norman grew tense. He pressured him about Marion, about the missing investigator, and about his supposed mother upstairs. Norman's composure faltered. His voice sharpened and his hands trembled. Finally, realizing Sam was stalling, Norman snapped. He attacked Sam, striking him unconscious, and rushed towards the house. And this is Norman at his most dangerous. The mask has slipped. No more polite innkeeper, just panic, rage, and mother rising to take control. Upstairs, Lila heard the commotion and quickly descended to the basement, desperate to find answers before Norman returned. But there, in the dim light of a bare bulb, she found her. Norma Bates, or rather what was left of her. Sitting in a chair, dressed in a faded housecoat, was the mummified corpse of Norman's mother. Skin stretched tight, hair brittle, teeth fixed in a ghastly grin. Lila gasped, the scream catching in her throat.
And that's when Norman appeared.
Yep, but he wasn't Norman anymore. He was Mother. Wearing his mother's clothes, a wig pinned tight, knife in hand, he rushed towards Lila with a shriek, his face contorted in rage and his voice high and sharp.
So here's the big reveal. Not only is Mom dead, she's also alive inside Norman, literally wearing her face like a mask.
Mm-hmm.
It's the moment where everyone's worst suspicions are confirmed and then multiplied by fucking 10.
Yep. Before he could strike, Sam regained consciousness and charged into the room. He wrestled Norman to the ground, wrenching the knife from his hand. Norman screamed, fighting, his voice switching between himself and Mother.
But it was over. Norman Bates was subdued. His double life exposed at last.
Mm-hmm. And in the aftermath, the story shocked Fairvale and soon the entire country. Reporters descended on the small town. Headlines screamed of the murder motel and the mad son of Fairvale, the man who kept his mother alive long after her death. The swamp was dredged. Cars and bodies were recovered, including Marion Crane's vehicle with her remains still inside. Holly, Gloria, and others who had vanished were finally accounted for. And in the house, investigators catalogued the evidence of Norman's obsession. The preserved bedroom, the mummified corpse, the woman's clothing, the hollow conversations held with no one.
Basically, it was part crime scene, part horror museum.
Yeah. And Norman was committed to a psychiatric institution, declared unfit to stand trial in the conventional sense. During evaluations, doctors observed the complete dominance of the mother personality. Norman would sit silently for hours and then suddenly speak in his mother's voice, insisting she was innocent and that Norman was guilty of everything.
Well, they say like he completely flipped. It was almost like the side of Norman that was there was gone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
A psychiatrist testified the patient has internalized his mother to such an extent that he no longer functions as an independent personality. His identity is fractured. He speaks of himself in the third person as though Norman Bates is dead and only Norma remains. So by the end, Norman didn't even exist anymore. He was just Mother sitting in a cell, convinced she was the one being persecuted. It's like, it wasn't fucking me, it was him. Geez, did you not see the man running around in my dress going crazy?
Still a bitch, even when she's not even in her own body. Just saying. The Bates case became...
I only live here. You need to blame the fucking landlord, lady. Always blame the landlord.
The Bates case became one of the most infamous in American true crime, not just because of the violence, but because of what it revealed about the human mind. Norman Bates wasn't a cold, calculating killer. He was a man consumed by grief, abuse, and delusion, someone who became both himself and his mother, unable to separate one from the other.
And it's something that might have been, in modern times, been picked up on and treated quicker and earlier before any tragedy.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes it scarier than your average true crime story as well, is it wasn't about money or revenge or greed or even lust, lust killings or any desire. It was just about love twisted into obsession until it became murder, you know?
Exactly.
It was genuine mental health issues as opposed to I'm a lonely, good-for-nothing fucking piece of shit that has no fucking real talent or ability to do anything else, so I am going to make my name off of slaughtering young women for fun.
Yeah. So,
that's what most serial killers are.
It is, yeah. So Marion Crane's theft, her desperate escape, ended not with police and prison, but with a knife in the Bates motel. And Norman Bates, the shy young man who seemed so polite, so harmless, became one of the most notorious killers of his time.
And in the end, it wasn't just Marion's downfall, it was Norman's too.
Yeah. When Norman Bates was dragged out of that basement in Fairvale, the nightmare was far from over. In fact, for many people, it was just beginning. The discovery of Norma Bates' mummified body shocked the nation. Reporters swarmed the town. The Bates Motel, once a forgotten roadside stop bypassed by the freeway, was now the most infamous building in America.
Newspapers branded Norman with every headline they could conjure. Murder Motel Horror! The son who became his mother. Fairvale's House of Secrets.
But beyond the lurid details, there was a real question. How do you persecute a man who is no longer himself?
Yeah, this isn't a simple whodunit. It's a who is it? Is it Norman? Is it his mother? Do you try them both? Do they need separate trials? Who the fuck knows?
Separate trials. And
Right,
would he
go
have to
get your-
dress up? Yeah.
he sits there as Norman. And it's like we're calling Norma to the stand. He's like one
Character
second.
witness.
Oh, he does one of those fucking cool costume changes, you know, where they just
They
twirl
rip it
around.
off.
And it's
And all the
like-
dry ice when he twirls around, ripping it off. At the courthouse, Norman appeared small and withdrawn, but he wasn't Norman anymore. He sat silently, hands folded, speaking only in his mother's voice when pressed. A journalist from the Fairvale Tribune described him as a frail figure, shifting between boyish stammers and the sharp tones of a scolding woman, as though two different people were occupying the same chair.
That reporter nailed it, though.
Mm.
Norman Bates wasn't just on trial. He was practically staging a duet with himself.
Yep. Prosecutors laid out the evidence. Marion Crane's car and body, Arbogast's disappearance, the earlier cases of Holly and Gloria, and the swamp that had swallowed years of secrets. They showed photographs of the preserved bedroom, the taxidermy's tools, and Norma Bates' corpse.
Yeah, the jury was horrified.
Imagine.
But when it came to assigning guilt, things grew more complicated.
Yep.
And what's even more fucked up is as well, this is the first time they're realizing that Norman murdered Chet and Norma. Up until it was a murder-suicide,
Okay.
which I think we explain a little better in episode 3.
Yeah.
But as far as they were concerned, Norma was jealous and killed Chet and then killed herself because, you know, she didn't want to be alone anymore. So now they figured out that he actually had 2 under his belt before anybody fucking realised what was going on.
Yep. Psychiatrists lined up to testify. They described Norman as suffering from dissociative identity disorder, then referred to as split personality or dual identity psychosis. Dr. Fred Richmond, one of the leading psychiatrists on the case, told the court,
Norman Bates is no longer a singular personality. The identity of his mother has taken dominance. It was the mother personality who committed these murders. Norman himself has receded, almost erased. So basically, by the time of the trial, Norman Bates was already gone. All that was left was mother sitting there, probably complaining about how drafty the courtroom was.
yeah, that's not far off. The prosecution pushed for a conviction, arguing that Norman had deliberately hidden the body, staged the scene, and covered up multiple murders. But the defense countered that Norman was legally insane and unfit to be held accountable.
Technically, would he not be an accessory to the crime if Norm is to blame?
If Norma's to blame, well, then would he
The
be...
Norman personality, side of his personality, would just be an accessory to the crime.
That's true. Yeah, actually. In the end, the court sided with the defense. Norman Bates was declared not guilty by reason of insanity and remanded indefinitely to a state psychiatric hospital.
Which is honestly the only option here.
Mm.
You could put him in you couldn't really put him in general population.
No.
Imagine Norman trying to explain to his cellmate why his mother keeps telling him to kill people.
He'd have a hard time of it in Gen Pop.
Oh yeah, he'd be like fucking what's his name, Richard Speck once he got his boobies.
Yeah. Ugh. Inside the institution, doctors observed the complete dominance of the mother personality. Norman himself was almost entirely absent.
Yeah, one report read that the patient no longer acknowledges his own existence. He insists he is Norma Bates. When questioned about Norman, he responds in the third person. He was weak. He couldn't handle the world. I had to take over. So now he's not just dressing his mother, he's thinking his mother full time. Norman has clocked out for fucking good.
He has. And that's the chilling truth. Norman Bates had disappeared inside his own mind, leaving only the spectre of his mother behind. The community of Fairvale struggled with the fallout. Some residents expressed sympathy, remembering Norman as the shy boy who had grown up under a domineering mother. Others were horrified, unable to reconcile the polite innkeeper with the man who kept his mother's corpse and murdered innocent women.
Yeah, the Fairvale Gazette wrote, "Was Norman Bates a monster, or was he a victim of monstrous circumstances? The town may never agree. What is certain is that the Bates house on the hill will never be seen in the same way again." And that's the thing, right? In small towns, people love to say, he was so quiet, so polite, I never would have guessed. Meanwhile, there's a fucking swamp full of cars out back.
Yep. The Bates case quickly became a touchstone in criminology and psychiatry. It wasn't just about murders. It was about what they revealed regarding trauma, grief, and identity.
Experts compared Norman to figures like Ed Gein, the Wisconsin murderer, who also lived with the preserved remains of his mother. Well, actually, he didn't. That's a lie. Ed tried to dig up his mother,
But wasn't able to
but
get
the
her.
ground was too hard and he wasn't able to get there. So he had to go to a fresher grave, dig up another woman and dress her up as his mother. So both cases showed how parental abuse and isolation could twist the psyche into something unrecognizable. Both cases, it was a domineering mother, overly religious mother who told them,
Yeah.
the women are the devil.
Exactly. But Norman's case stood apart because of the sheer completeness of his transformation. Like, he didn't just idolize his mother, preserve her. He became his mother.
Yeah, but I mean, again, wore her skin.
That's true.
Norman just wore her soul.
Did he wear his mom's skin or did he wear somebody else's
He wore
skin?
someone else's skin and pretended to be Augusta, okay?
Well then. Years after the trial, journalists would revisit Fairvale to see what remained. The motel was abandoned, its neon sign rusting in the weeds. The house loomed above it, empty, but still radiating dread.
One reporter described walking through the Bates property as stepping into a place where time had stopped, where grief had calcified into horror.
And at the state hospital, Norman Bates, or rather Norma, sat quietly, rocking in her chair, insisting she had done nothing wrong.
Which, in a way, is the creepiest fucking part. He doesn't rant, he doesn't rage, he just sits there calmly letting Mother take all the credit. Like the murders were her doing all along.
Yes. And that's the haunting legacy of Norman Bates. So in the end, Marion Crane's theft of $40,000 became a footnote in a far darker story. She thought she was running from the law, but she ran straight into the arms of a killer who didn't even realize he was the one holding the knife. Norman Bates was not just a murderer. He was a fractured soul, consumed by the voice of a dead woman. And in the courtroom, in the hospital, in public memory, that voice was louder than his own.
Which is why, even today, the name Norman Bates doesn't just mean killer. It means something deeper. A man lost in grief, swallowed whole by his mother, and remembered forever as the boy who never grew up. Like Peter Pan, except with a fucking twist.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when you hear people joke about how close a mother and fucking son are, Norma and Norman Bates usually are the joke you make.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And in the years that followed his arrest, Norman Bates was confined to the state psychiatric hospital. At first, the mother personality dominated completely. Norman was gone and only her voice remained. But doctors began to notice something. Slowly, piece by piece, Norman seemed to be resurfacing again. His responses softened. His stammer returned. And for the first time in years, he spoke as Norman, not mother.
So the boy who'd vanished inside his mother's shadow was finally stepping back into the light.
Yes, treatment was working, and Norman Bates showed signs of recovery. But the story didn't end there, because 20 years later, the doors of the Bates Motel would swing open once again.
And that's when the past comes knocking.
Exactly. But we will cover that in our next episode next week.
Yeah, this episode is slightly shorter this week. Not by much, by about 15 minutes. But that's because I think we needed to separate these fucking parts. Because the Marion Crane part and him getting caught, and even his time in his first run in the hospital, you really need to kind of just drive that home and not muddy it up with what's about to come next. Because after the 20-year arrest that Norman has, what happens to him in the following decade after that is just... we haven't even gotten to the crazy shit yet.
No.
Do you know?
We haven't. No.
We've covered a lot of mad shit, but Norman's not the only head case involved in next week's part of the story, the concluding part of the story.
Yeah.
There is there's at least two more crazies to pop up here. both who we've met already in this story.
Ooh,
It's a little
spoiler.
cliffhanger for next week. Yeah, that's it. We're done with this part. This for this week, and it's a nice little story. Bring us into Halloween on Friday.
Sure is.
We'll see you on Friday. We'll be talking to you on
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah.
We've got the Horrorverse headlines coming on
Exactly.
Friday.
And if you want more horror and crime fun, then head on over to patreon.com/the Horrorverse Network and check out our bonus show. It's a live action because tomorrow we'll be dropping our bonus show episode where we will again be talking about a man very similar to Norman Bates, and that is the Butcher of Plainfield, Ed Gein, as we cover his life in part 2 of the almost sympathetic horror tale.
And while you're there, check out the rest of our Patreon exclusive shows like Playing with Bones, which is on episode 3 of season 4 right now. What are we doing this week? What were we doing this week?
We are doing Cursed Objects.
Cursed Objects.
Cursed Objects. Well, so there's Tutankhamun, Screaming Mummies, mostly about Tutankhamun, but we have a few extras thrown in there.
I heard of this myth of this box and this puzzle box, and if you put it together right, some really kinky shit happens.
Ooh. Into the BDSM.
Also, Celebrity Rap Sheet is there. First full season is up with the classic movie scandals of Fatty Arbuckle, Mabel Normand, William Desmond Taylor, and the Black Dahlia. And I might as well just fucking tell you that next week is your last episode of
Tis?
Playing with Bones. The week after, we are going into 4 weeks of old O.J. Simpson, The Juice.
And
And it's going to take me 4 weeks to tell you the story about the juice. All of it. Start to finish.
All that. And mini monsters are available now on at the Horrorverse Network on Patreon. Subscribe now for only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial for all new subscribers. And if you're into gaming, hopefully you can catch me on Twitch every Monday from 10 p.m. to midnight Irish time, which is 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. That's on Twitch at Amy Rose 9.
We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See you all then. Same love, lifetime, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
Hey, lady, love you. Bye-bye.